So, people, I have more information to expose. You decide how you want to regard these judges in the Canadian court. The level of corruption that's involved, the level of racism that's involved, the level of disregard for respecting international human rights. In my regard, I'm not talking about anybody else's case here. I'm talking about my situation here. So as I mentioned earlier, that I had a case conference hearing this morning. Why would they even suggest a case conference hearing for an urgent motion? An urgent motion that I filed as an ex parte motion because I was facing irreparable harm by being forced evicted from the shelter into direct homelessness because Peel Region could not, under the statute, the Housing Services Act did not have the jurisdiction to relocate anyone outside of the region. It does not have the jurisdiction to work with other municipalities in doing that. Yet that's what it was granted by the other corrupt judge, Jamie Trimble. Okay, I appealed his order. I asked for a review of his order before the panel. Before this can get before the panel of judges, I asked for a temporary stay of his decision until it gets to the panel. This was dismissed by Michael Emery, saying that I had to file an affidavit, which I did. Then I filed an urgent motion in regards to him not granting the stay and not having the urgent motion against Trimble J. Heard. And also in my urgent motion, I set out the grounds for the urgent motion, which is that I was facing irreparable harm and all of these things. Okay. The matter was brought before Trimble J, and he wanted service on the other party in regards to my urgent motion. It shouldn't have been brought before him because it's his decision that I was asking for a review from the panel, because he lifted automatic stay on the order that made Peel Region, the mandatory order that made Peel Region house me in their shelter. He lifted the stay on that. Why would they even set up a case conference for an urgent motion if they're going to consider the circumstances surrounding that urgent motion? A, this person is facing homelessness. B, this person has serious medical conditions. And so this is endangering their life, their physical safety. This judge, Michael Doy, came back into the hearing and said that the urgent motion will be heard on November 18th. Why would they delay, and why would he, as a judge, delay an urgent motion? Not a few days, but few more weeks. At the case conference hearing, he asked the respondents, Peel Region, because they did not respond after I served them last week, 9 days ago or 10 days ago. They didn't respond. And so they were asked, when can you file your responding materials to my urgent motion? They said they can do it in a few days. The judge said, okay, I will be back in a minute. Stayed much longer than a few minutes. Eventually came back into the case conference hearing and stating that the urgent motion will be set down for a hearing on November 18th. That is more than a month since I filed that urgent motion. More like 6 weeks. Who the hell? have an urgent motion delayed so long when the person's life and health and safety are in jeopardy? I mentioned to this judge that I was hospitalized 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Apparently that fell on deaf ears because it did not affect his decision to delay the urgent motion further by a few more weeks. People, this guy, Michael Doy, was a former legal director with the Ministry of Attorney General of Ontario before he was appointed as a judge a few years ago in 2018, I believe. If you understand the role of the Ministry of Attorney General as well as the Ministry of Justice, they're there to enforce the Constitution, to make sure that court proceedings are fair, especially the Ministry of Attorney General, which is above the courts. This guy was a former legal director, this Michael Doy, who is now delaying my urgent motion, not by a few days, but by a few weeks. And it was already delayed by a few weeks already. And so he was a former legal director in the government itself, in the Ministry of Attorney General, which is there to ensure that people's rights are protected under the Charter, that they don't face this kind of discrimination, that they have a fair hearing, that they are respected as people before the courts, none of which is being done in my case. So here you have this former legal director with the Ministry of Attorney General now delaying my urgent motion for several more weeks when he knows that being evicted from a homeless shelter is going to cause irreparable harm. When he was told at the case conference hearing that I had to be admitted to the hospital because of my medical condition at least 3 times in the last 2 weeks, that did not factor in when he came back and says this urgent motion is going to be heard on November 18th. Why would he do that? I thought he was going to at least bring this matter for a hearing in a few days, because the respondents, Peel Region, said they could file their responding material in a few days, since they already delayed filing their urgent material, their motion materials after being served 10 days ago. They now told the court at the case conference hearing that yes, we can do this in a few days. So I am thinking not only was it delayed, but if it has to be delayed further, then what choice did I have but to live with a few more days? No, that's not what was going to be coming from this judge. After Peel Region's lawyer, Jennifer Bruce, said that she can have the motion materials that I serve on them, she can file her responding motion in a few days, this judge came back into the courtroom and says the urgent motion is going to be heard on November 18th, and also seemed to suggest that he's the one who's going to be hearing it. And he is the case conference judge. So this is a repeat of what Trimble J himself has done as a case conference judge, to hear the urgent motion, to hear the motion from Peel Region in regards to the automatic stay, when he was case managing it all along. And so you have this former director with the Ministry of Attorney General now made himself the case conference judge, and also stated at the case conference hearing this morning that he's the one who's going to hear the motion. And all motions or matters related to this legal proceeding is going to go before him. While he's case managing it, that's his business. But he has no right to be hearing this motion as the case management judge. I'm going to be contacting the Ministry of Attorney General in regards to him, Because if he was a former legal director of the very ministry that is oversees the courts and are supposed to ensure that people's rights are respected in the courts and it's not infringed upon in the court, and now you have somebody who was a legal director in that ministry now freaking delaying my urgent motion for not days more, weeks more. Obviously, he has no regard for my physical safety. He has no regard for my constitutional rights or my charter rights, because it didn't bother him that he was now delaying this urgent motion further. It started off with Jamie Trimble delaying my urgent motion from being heard by asking me to serve the respondents. And Doy is now taking it further and saying, well, it's not important to us, so it can come back November 18th. This is an urgent motion. This is an urgent motion from someone who has been forced to become homeless, who's facing irreparable harm because of that, and who has these medical issues that is also causing her endangering her physical safety, her health and safety. Under the United Nations Human Rights Declaration on Human Rights, they're infringing on my right to life. Under the Canadian Charter, they're infringing on my right to life and the security of my person. This Judge Michael Doy. So please believe me when I say, people, that I will be prosecuting him. I'm working on it right now with the I.C.C. You need to understand how much I am being targeted in this country. No human rights agencies inside and outside of Canada will touch my case. Amnesty International will not touch my case. They have like an urgent action network that they implement when someone's human rights are being infringed on, allegedly. So they say. Obviously, it's not enforced in regards to my situation. Because I contacted Amnesty International Urgent Action, and I'm going to post the name of the woman who I left the message with, and she didn't get back to me. I also contacted the IACHR, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, to take precautionary measures against Canada. There was no response as far as them taking any precautionary measures against Canada. So here's the thing that they not seem to be aware of, that if they are complicit, meaning that if by their lack of actions in regards to my situation, they cause me to be subjected to further harm through crimes against humanity or torture or all of those categories under Article 7 of the Rome Statute, they themselves are going to be charged. So that's where the situation lies, because they think that they can just ignore me and don't respond. And these people are such hypocrites because they're supposed to enforce human rights, and they haven't done that in my case. Okay. So the situation is that I am not going to enforce my rights against them and proceed with charging them in the I.C.C. All of them, included Demar Kimar Hewitt with the Black Action Legal Defense, because that was set up to combat anti-Black racism. And when I contacted that center and says I am facing anti-Black racism in the Canadian courts, this guy who is the executive director, Demar Kimar Hewitt, would not take on my case. So no one inside of Canada and outside of this country will take on my case as far as the abuse of my human rights. So all of these people will be charged, because they can be charged in the I.C.C. If they were complicit, if by their actions they cause this human rights abuse to be carried out against me, they can also face charge, and that's what they're going to be facing. Sharon Crow, who is the legal director for the Mississauga Community Legal Clinic, is also going to be charged. She is so corrupt that she sent me an email stating, before she even want to consider assisting me, are you going to take a complaint against me with the Law Society or with the I.C.C.? I had mentioned that to her previously because she was coming to me with her bullshit that she didn't think my case had any merits, and she says, this is as far as you can go legally. Here you have this lawyer who's supposed to give you good advice and do everything within her power to assist me, and she's telling me, no, I don't think you should continue with this matter. So obviously I didn't agree with her, and then she's like, no, if you don't trust me, then we can't work together. Of course I don't trust you. I know what you're trying to do. You're part of this conspiracy as well. So she blocked me from getting the legal aid that I need to get as far as the legal representation in the courts to deal with my situation. She's going to be charged because based on her complicity in this matter, she allowed the Canadian government to carry out crimes against humanity against me and torture. All of them, I'm so looking forward to that. So looking forward that these people will be prosecutors in the I.C.C. as long as the chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, accept my complaints against them, they will, and proceed with charges against them. They are going to face prosecution in the I.C.C. And I am working on my case right now with the I.C.C. And once you're a victim in the I.C.C., you are entitled to legal counsel. So this is something that I'm going to be stressing. Once you contact the I.C.C. and your case is accepted, you are entitled to legal counsel. And so that's what I'm going to be stressing. What has happened in my case here is that they have completely made a mockery of my situation. Not only did these judges, and I want to mention here that Jennifer Bruce has acted so immoral, so unethical as a lawyer. She deserved that complaint against her with the Law Society. But these judges have no excuse for violating my rights, for endangering my life. This judge this morning is a case conference judge. Why the fuck do you have a case conference judge regarding an urgent motion? There is no time for that. This is not a regular motion. This is an urgent motion where someone is facing imminent danger. Why do they set it up with a case conference? And even at the case conference hearing this morning, I was hoping that he would address the urgency of my motion. He didn't touch upon it. He did not touch upon the urgency of my motion. Because obviously if he did, he would not delay this urgent motion for weeks later to be heard. This is the corruption that's going on in the Canadian court. When I tell you that I am facing torture, psychological torture, when I'm facing crimes against humanity, this is what I'm facing. I think there's 7 categories under Article 7 for crimes against humanity. And they're carrying this out against me. What more can I say in regards to what they've done to my life? None of the things that they've done in regards to the regional municipality of Peel should have been done. I'm not even going to go into that right now. It's utter corruption and utter abuse of power. So I am hoping that this will attract the right kind of people who will hear this video, because now I am dedicated to exposing the fact that Canada carries out torture and crimes against humanity, which is tried very hard to cover up. It's like a murderer. Canada is like well, it already have blood on its hand. You know what pissed me off when I came across this article where in the I.C.C. where they wanted to proceed against Canada for crimes against humanity regarding those indigenous boarding school for the indigenous children. And it came back that they will not proceed against Canada for crimes against humanity regarding those situations. Because it was outside of the statute of limitation, like I think it was before 2002. And so the I.C.C. would not take on that. But my situation is obviously after this Rome Statute came into effect and after it was enacted, after 2002. And also with the Rome Statute, Canada also implemented it into its own laws, but there is no way that I would believe, based on what I've seen so far in my case, in my situation, that Canada would actually prosecute anyone in this country for crimes against humanity or for torture. It would be unwilling to do that. And this is where the I.C.C. comes in, because if the member states is unwilling to enforce the law, it will be done by the originating party. There is no way that I'm going to allow them to abuse my rights like this and get away with it. There is no way I'm going to allow them to jeopardize my life like this, literally jeopardizing my life. So whatever needs to be done, I'm not satisfied with just bringing these judges before the Judicial Council. I'm not satisfied with that. They have to be prosecuted in the I.C.C. The public has to know that they don't act right in the court. The public has to know that they are corrupt and racist. Because if I was a white woman before this judge this morning, he would not have shown such disregard for my situation and for the circumstances that I'm facing regarding the urgency of this motion. So this is Valerie Guillaume reporting for Canada Human Rights Abuse Exposed. I hope that people get to see this website and my blog, and once they become aware of this information in regards to the torture that's being carried out against me and the crimes against humanity, I'm hoping that this would be a public outrage, not just because it's happening to me, but it shouldn't happen to anyone. And Canada has blood on its hands. It's like that murderer. It's a murderer. It kills you. This is what you call a silent kill. It completely blocked all avenues for assistance. All. Both inside and outside of Canada. Okay? What it does is isolate the victim and try to destroy you that way. That's what it's doing to me. That's why no human rights agencies inside and outside of Canada will even consider my case. So this is Valerie Guillaume, and I'm reporting for human rights abuse and the torture that I'm going through in this country, and how I have taken step now in my hands to stop it by prosecuting these people who are carrying it out against me in the criminal court, the International Criminal Court. So this is where things stand right now today. This judge, Michael Doyle, delayed my urgent motion that was filed weeks ago, even more so, by setting a date for it to be heard on November 18th. This is an urgent motion we're talking about. This is an urgent motion that involved the safety, physical safety of the person. Okay? So, Michael Doyle, Jamie Trimble, Michael Emery, Laura B. Stewart, Ranjan Agarwal, and some of the other judges, they will be charged in the I.C.C. and prosecuted in the I.C.C. for carrying out crimes against humanity against me, for violating my rights under international law, for taking steps to endanger my safety, and to carry out the persecution of me in Canada through the Canadian courts. And I will put a stop to that now. I'll put a stop to that now. So I will continue to keep the public informed in regards to this development, as far as what the courts are doing to violate my rights, and what I'm doing about it myself. This is Valerie Guillaume in regards to human rights abuse in Canada.